going, not only today, we're going to be on the Capitol steps tomorrow. We're going to go back home to our district, and we're not afraid to go into Republican districts. But right now, Republicans are afraid. So we're having victories. We're winning in the court. We are winning in all of those litigations that we're doing. They're putting stays, they're putting freezes on the dollars that he tried to freeze. Now we're able to get some of those dollars back. And I think what you're doing, well, wait to be in this, hold us accountable. My record speaks for itself. Maxine Waters' record speaks for itself. I was out there with her and other people. But we also need media to tell
Hi,
our
everybody.
stories as well.
What's up?
We have to let the people know
I'm
that we're in this
watching
like
Rolling
the
Water.
lawyers. You have to call us out for the good we're doing. Because if we don't give hope to the least of us,
This
and
all
to the
communists,
black Americans, and to
black, I
all
mean,
of Americans,
stake up the
then
union.
that's another part of unity tonight. And I'm calling on
I'm
all
going
people,
live,
and
let everybody
especially
hear,
black
see what's
people,
going on.
to give hope.
I
If
missed
we're
some of
not
it.
in this fight,
Cause I
if
had
we're
to
following some of the things
charge
that
my
they're asking
phone.
us to do, we have
I
been
got 80-something%.
unapologetic about not being in the room with them. That's the people's house, and he has
Come on.
no right or
Ah.
privilege to be there. And for Elon Musk, a billionaire, to be the spokesperson, unelected, unvetted, and unqualified. So we're calling them out, and I will continue to stand with the Democratic Party. I will continue to stand with my good friends who are here today because they're making
I
a
missed
difference.
some of them. I did some. I went live on my other phone. And that needed to be charged. And I had this on a charger.
This is not for the faint of heart. We've got to find a way to recognize that this is a real deal. And they're going to come after all of us. Maxine will tell you how many death threats she's gotten in just the
Wow.
last 10 days. I've got police
Dude,
outside of my
these are
house now.
communists.
Jasmine Crockett had to have 2 federal officers accompany her on a trip. It's that kind of situation.
Wow.
So we need people to recognize that we've got to step out. And I think more than anything else, we need a real crisp plan, a Magna Carta of where we get to the next level. Just like the contract on America was 10 points that everybody understood, everybody agreed in, and everybody worked around. We need something simple like that for our people, for our struggle, and we need all aspects of our community to be a part of forming it.
Well, and Congresswoman Waters, you know this. You're not.
Oh, that's
all
up.
the time. We talk about the importance of black-owned media because we're living in a world now where mainstream media using these.
I'm streaming. It's something I can do. I can't hardly walk. I can't be around. I can't hardly walk. So this is something I can do is stream and let everybody know what's going on. So look at it, y'all.
$600 million was spent on ads, and so you whined about $350,000. When I'm like, you can't do what we're doing here for free. And so we've got to have investment.
I can't be out there. I'm sickly and I can't hardly walk. But power to my people. Trump needed and Musk and all their people need to be put down. Put down. That's what I said. Put down.
When you see mainstream media folding, this is where
He got office. He messing up everything. Got other countries threatening us.
The best
The crap.
example of why it is absolutely necessary for us to have our own media. You have done what was necessary to get the resources together so that you can have us on a program like tonight. You think NBC or ABC or CBS would have all of us on for this long talking about our issues? Kwesi and I, we talk about this stuff all the time. And Kwesi and I have made some decisions. We're not going tonight to be insulted by the low down, dirty, no good, nasty president of the United States of America. We're not going to sit there and hear him say whatever he has to say. And I just hope that he keeps revealing his own self about how dirty and cruel he is. But would we get this opportunity anyplace else? We've got to own our media. We've got to understand that they need the resources to do what is necessary to get the truth out, to get the real word out. We've got so much to talk about, so many stories to tell, so many need, such a big need to educate people about how this government works, how this system works. So I thank you for having the persistence, for having the necessary strength to do what you're doing, to keep us talking. very much.
Sue him?
And all of
That's
you,
a solid.
Joyce, everybody in the room
Yeah.
tonight are
Very
people
good.
who
I tell
can
you,
not
do it
only
'cause I ain't
speak
picked that
up
trash out.
for what
you
they
doing?
believe in, but they do it every day. Not everybody does that, but thank you for giving us the opportunity to have this opportunity tonight to be able to speak truth to power.
Well, I appreciate it. I wanted us to hit 100,000. We're now sitting at 169,000. On our way. So, Waters, I appreciate it. Congressman Improvement, I appreciate it. Ken, final point, want to go to you. You had some influencers. They were at the DNC on Capitol Hill earlier. Talk about what y'all are doing to really focus on alternative media. The right funded that for a long time, and progressives ignored it. They've ignored black-owned media as well, and they saw what happened in the last election. Talk about that role that's going to play as you the chair.
Well, I mean, you hit on this, right? We keep ignoring independent media outlets like yours at our own expense. We keep ignoring these new class of information influencers, people who are out there actually getting our message out to the masses. Look,
They
I'm
like
a
me.
hunter. People ask me,
I'm
where do I
Steven.
hunt, right? They think I'm going to say my
Going
favorite
live.
deer stand or my
Everybody
favorite
what's
hunting
going
spot, right? No. When I go to hunt deer,
Listen,
I go
okay,
to
go.
where the deer are. We know right now people are getting information from lots of different spaces, right? From all across the social media, from podcast to gaming services to vertical video, all these new places. Yet these DC consultants continue to put money in behind tactics that don't work, that are old and antiquated, that are not reaching people. We need to meet people where they're at. That means we need to invest as a party in black-owned media. We need to invest as in the party with these young influencers who are reaching young voters like never before, and everything in between. So we need to do a better job because, to your point, and we've talked about this before, Roland, the Republican Party kicked our butts in this last election cycle because they were meeting voters where they were getting the information. We have to do a much better job on that, and you have my commitment. We're going to do a much better job with this DNC than previous DNC.
All right, we surely appreciate it. Thanks a lot, Ken Martin. Thanks a lot, Congresswoman Joyce Bailey. Thanks a lot. Again, Barbara Online, David too. Thanks a lot as well.
Take that measure, Mama.
We're gonna do this here. We're gonna
Take
take
the
a quick
measure,
break.
Mama.
Folks, y'all don't go anywhere. Trust me. We're bringing in our pastors lineup. We're bringing in Dr. Greg Carr. We're bringing in Nola Haynes. We're bringing in our other panelists. We're also getting ready for Reverend Dr. William Barber, Congresswoman Maxine Waters. Thanks a lot as well. And so, folks, do me a favor. Support the work that we do. We don't have millionaires and billionaires cutting us checks. I tell you, I went to the PO box the other day. There were 386 people who mailed in checks and money orders. Now, it took me 6 hours. It took me 6 hours having to open an envelope, pull them out, sign it, catalog it, and post it. But the money still counts. But the reason that's important, because I need people to understand, is regular, ordinary people. I told y'all, I was talking to Pastor Bill Lamar. He said he had 5 different cousins sending him the message about tonight's show. I had people saying, man, they grandmamas and mamas and grandfathers were saying, y'all gonna watch Rolling the Show. We launched this show September 4th, 2018 for the very reason, because we understood what mainstream media was not doing. In the 6.5 years, we've gone from 157,000 YouTube subscribers to now 1.7 million, on our way to 2 million. And that's just the hard work. And so we want your support. If you want to contribute via Cash App, this is the QR code right here. Use the Stripe QR code. You're listening, go to BlackStarNetwork.com. That's the QR code there. The Cash App, checks and money order. PO Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037. That's 0196. PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo, RM Unfiltered, Zelle. Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. And I see y'all in the chat. I know y'all want this shirt. I keep seeing y'all comments. And so the shirt I'm wearing, let me stand up so y'all can see the shirt. So I wore it to the All-Star game. And a bunch of folks won. They said, don't blame me, I voted for the black woman. So y'all go to the site. We also have our shirts, hashtag, we tried to tell you, FAFO 2025. Go to RolandMartin.creator-spring.com or to BlackStarNetwork.com. Short break, then we'll be back with our pastors, our political panelists, before we go live to Reverend Dr. William Barber. We're going to record what Trump has to say. We know he's going to lie. We ain't going to show any of it. We'll show clips after Barber's done. But we're going to have it all covered. I've already seen some excerpts. They're already going to be, they're going to definitely be attacking black people and poor people. So we got lots to say about that. You're watching the Black Star Network with 100. 275,000. Tell your friends and family, let's get to 200,000 back in a moment.
Nah.
Next, on A Balanced Life, we're talking everything from prayer to exercise to positive affirmations and everything that's needed to keep you strong and along your way. That's on a next A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, on Black Star Network.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach. Have you ever had that $1 million idea and wondered how you could make it a reality? On the next Get Wealthy, you're going to meet Liska Askelis, the inventress, someone who made her own idea a reality and now is showing others how they can do it too.
Positive, focusing in on the thing that you want to do, writing it down, and not speaking to naysayers or anybody about your product until you've taken some steps to at least execute.
Liska Askelis on the next Get Wealthy, right here, only on Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
this is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our job, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
This week, on the other side of change.
Environmental disasters and systemic exploitation, from the wildfires in California to the unexpected snowstorms in the South.
We are in the climate collapse. These extreme weather events are becoming more disastrous, and it is Black and brown communities that are often hit first and worst.
Watch us on the Black Star Network, so tune in to the other side of change.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people power movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind $100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money on to go to PO Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20026-0196. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
This is sick as y'all ever got
Coming soon
2025.
to the Black Star Network.
2025.
But y'all, when you're on that stage, or when you're and you're seeing 2 and 3 or 4 generations in the audience, that's got to speak to you about the power of what y'all become.
Oh, most definitely. I think we were doing our show before our break, and remember I was watching this kid. I could not take my eyes off him because he was about 9 or so. He was sitting in the front row with his over on the right hand side. Yes. I was amazed that this kid knew everything, and I was like tripping to see how many songs this kid actually knew, and he knew them all. And he knew them all. We had to go over there and bring him on stage and take a picture with him, at the end of the show and stuff, because it was just that amazing. It's like, this is crazy.
The music travels everywhere. Like what Philip was saying, seeing this young kid, then you hear our songs on commercials, cold commercials. Then you have the younger ones that hear our music in animation.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr. Dr. Gerald Horne, a man regarded by many as the most important historian of our time. He provides us a history lesson, betting you've never heard before.
Texas enslavers who plan to continue the conflict even after Appomattox, even after the formal surrender of Robert E. Lee.
Dr. Horne talks about his new book, The Counter-Revolution of 1836.
Let me act like a grandma.
Slavery,
You better come on,
and
ass
Jim
down.
Crow, and the roots of U.S. fascism. You do not want to miss this conversation.
Act
Only on
like
the
you
Black
care.
Table, right here.
Right, look,
on the
I know
Black
you
Star
better go
Network.
outside. Look, they see you try to go out there and say, man, you in my window. I need something to drink.
Now that Roland Martin is willing to give me the blueprint, hey, Sarah, I need to go to Tyler Perry and get another blueprint because I need some green money. The only way I can do what I'm doing, I need to make some money. So you'll see me working with Roland. Matter of fact, it's the Roland Martin and Cheryl Underwood show. Well, should it be the Cheryl Underwood show and the Roland Martin show? But whatever show it's gonna be good.
I would bring the old cover in the front room. She would put a miserable around the cover. You know what I mean? I mean, every time my pillowcase over there in her hot room. She's already that damn a glue house. That's one. And down the people in front of
Network State of our Union here on this night. It's going to be a joint session of Congress. Kneel down. There you go. There you go. Kneel down. Do a joint session. Come on. Go ahead. Go across. Kneel down. There you go. You're good. There you are. It's going to be a joint session of Congress, of course. The twice impeached criminal conviction felon in chief is returned to the crime scene, giving a speech tonight. And so we're going to be hearing from Bishop William Barber, who is here. This is a live look of the House floor. The cabinet is walking in. You know that cabinet are really rich folks and one black dude. Who's probably the brokest cabinet member in the Trump administration. We've been talking about labor, business leaders, and we were talking about the need to fight. And some folk need to understand fight. I love this scene.
Cooking mother.
Airmen. Let's see here. I love this scene because I think it.
What are you showing her? I thought you said you didn't want to see it.
Where African Americans are. Let's see here.
You know you got the black makers in there.
Give me 1 second. I'm gonna have to do a reset. I had it shown a little bit earlier. I always love to play this because I think this speaks to the reality of black people all the time. Henry, go ahead. Let's see. It's gonna come up in a second.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this glorious day. We ask that you send your angels down to surround us as we fly through the sky. We know that it's part of your master plan that we've made it all the way from Tuskegee here to Ramartilly. We are very confident in our abilities, but we ask that you give us the vision, the sight, and the speed and power to make it through this mission. All the airmen say, in Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen.
Nothing's difficult. Everything's a challenge. Through adversity to the stars. From the last plane to the last bullet to the last minute to the last man, we fight. We fight. We fight. We fight. We fight. We fight.
So I figured we're going to pass this panel. We might as well have a prayer before the pass this panel. So I went ahead and played that. Joining us right now in studio, William Lamar, Pastor the Fourth, Pastor Metropolitan African American Episcopal Church here in Washington, D.C. From Memphis, Dr. Kenneth Whalum Jr., New Olivet Center at Woodland Hills. Out of Baltimore, Empowerment Temple, Reverend Robert Turner, and also Community of Hope AME Church Reverend Tony Lee. Glad to have you here as well. Of course, we got other folks here in the studio. I'm going to introduce them in a bit. I want to kick this thing off with you first, Pastor Whalen. You're there in Memphis. And Dr. King talked about where do we go from here, chaos or community. And right now, it's a whole lot of chaos. People are frustrated. They're upset. And they really are upset also with a lot of black church leaders who they think have been far too quiet and compliant. What would you say to the message to black preachers where they need to be in this moment facing this insurrectionist who sits in the Oval Office?
Yeah, thanks, Roland. I couldn't be more excited to be on 120 plus thousand people on this show tonight. Speaking of Dr. King, man,
we up to 185,000 watching right now.
Hallelujah.
So
Tell the Lord thank you. Tell the Lord thank you. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Yes, sir.
Listen, not only did Dr. King say what he just said, what you just quoted, he also said that worship is not a weak, namby-pamby pursuit of time. He said it is powerful and it can bring down mountains. And that's what I think we have to do as faith leaders. We have to worship. Another thing that our people are feeling that I didn't hear in that litany of traits that you just recited was fear. Man, a lot of our people are afraid. And it's up to faith leaders, pastors especially, to remind our people that God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. And a sound mind comes from worship. It comes from God consecrating our minds and giving us a mind toward the long game. Gotta have a long, patient outlook toward what lies ahead of us.
Pastor Lamar, again, people in the chat, I keep getting the emails when I see them in person. They're like, man, look, I don't know what to do, but I want to do something. What do we do? Where do we start? They're looking for leadership to speak. What do you tell them?
I think the first thing, Roland, is we have always drawn strength from one another in the community, except to make sure that we do not atomize at this time. That we find spaces
I was talking
to
about
gather,
for
find
no
spaces
stores,
for
but
joy.
oh,
Even
y'all,
tonight, what people do not see is we're feeding us. The people do not see here that we're surrounded by the beautiful to nurture our spirits. And after we've done that, the power of our being together in spirit and physicality leads us into the world to change it. So my argument is, if we don't have spaces to be together designed by us, for us, we will not be able to do what's next. Now, what's next? Also, we have to have a clear political aim for our gathering. Every religious situation is political. The question is, what are the politics served? So the politics of that Negro who gave the benediction at Trump's inauguration are not our politics.
Right.
We have to remember that at the height of enslavement, they outlawed our gathering because they knew that there was power in our organizing, envisioning, and building a new world. So that is my argument. We must demand from our church leaders clearly what is the political end that you seek. And right now, it has to be to protect our people, but we have to continue to build something alternative within the American imperial system, which we have done at our best.
Pastor Turner, you led that historic church in Tulsa where black folks in 1921 fled during that race massacre. And this is a moment where the black church needs a massive revival, needs to assert itself because, frankly, when we talk about the Black Lives Matter movement, Pastor Jamal Brown and I talk about this all the time. That was the first time in American history a massive black movement was not led by the black church. What do you say to the church right now in this moment what it needs to be doing?
First of all, thank you for having this great conversation. The church right now really needs to be the church. And as Dr. Lamar mentioned, organization is at the key of that. Nobody to this day sees more of our people on a more regular basis than the black church. Still, even in 20 and 25. And so we need to utilize that, not only merely for singing and praising and dancing, which we do very well, or just for preaching, but to use that space and that time to organize and inform our people about what is happening in the world that we live in. And in addition to that, when preachers who are still considered to be a part of the leadership fabric of most Black communities, when preachers or pastors are invited to go to several gatherings and galas and events, to, if we attend those events, to not simply represent ourselves or to drink good beverages and eat fine food, but to represent the masses of people, and to still, in those settings, also speak truth to power, and not allowing people to come and pimp our pulpits merely for votes, but to demand from them what is the necessary and agenda item number one for Black people. And you know, I gotta say it. I said it in Tulsa and I said it in Baltimore: reparations, which should be agenda 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 for our people.
I want y'all to understand, while Pastor Turner was speaking, Donald Trump was walking down the aisle. Y'all can go back to the shot. And normally, when they're coming down, a president comes down the aisle, they'll greet people on both sides. Nobody on the Democratic side reached out to shake his hand. He was only shaking hands of Republicans. He was completely shunned by the Democrats, as well they should. Tony Lee, what is the challenge to the Black church in this moment in time? We got you on mute. Now we got you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the challenge, Roland, for us, the Black church, is to remember where our office comes from. I think so often that we forget that we've seen this kind of thing before, whether it's in our community, whether it's even in Scripture. That Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego dealt with a king who set up a big gold statue of himself. Seems like similar to Trump, and that ad about Gaza, this gold statue. But they understood and told the king they would not bow down. But they did it collectively. They did it in solidarity with each other. And I think that we need to remember that just because somebody has position doesn't mean they have power. That Bull Connor had position, but our folks had power. And they had the kind of power that now relegates Bull Connor to seem to just be an antagonist in our victory story. But yet, in the midst of it all, that we had the power to be able to get past Bull Connor. That's what we've got to remember. We've got to remind folks that we have the power. And remember, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were thrown into a fiery furnace, 3 of them. But King Nebuchadnezzar looked up into the furnace and said, I threw in 3, but now it looks like 4, because he didn't realize they had a power source and that God was with them. And we've got to remind folks that we fight because we know that we don't fight by ourselves, but we fight because God is on our side.
Folks, as Pastor Lee was talking, the Republicans were praising their God, Donald Trump. You see how they still are clapping for him. You see on the Democratic side, they are silent. No one is clapping at all. And you know, so you see the smug look of the twice impeached, criminally convicted felon in chief. This is what we expected, Dr. Greg Carr. And in a moment, he's about to speak. But we're going to go live to Bishop William Barber, who's in our studio. Greg, just real quick, just share your thoughts before this thug speaks.
Empire's fall. The United States was never going to be here forever, and this is just accelerating the inevitable. In terms of domestic policy, what he's going to say tonight about his boss, Putin, what he's going to say about tariffs in a world that will now be truly multipolar, should scare the hell out of everyone. Domestically, white nationalism has always been at the center of this. I have to disagree with my friend Janai Nelson on this. The Constitution is no guarantee of anything. In fact, it will protect white nationalism, to read Ron Walters correctly. So tonight, when he starts talking about the things that he did to make America better in the 6 weeks, firing all these people, we saw as we were on our way over here that Elon Musk said that he should pardon Derek Chauvin. This is white nationalism, right? And so our fight, which you're showing tonight on the Black Star Network, as these numbers soar, as we get ready to hear Reverend Barber, that 24-hour thing that was done today, folks gathering, that was very important. What's more important, however, is Black-owned independent media, because the Black church, the Black institutions, and this Black network now must decide if Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego said they ain't bound down to the king, what the hell are Black people going to do in the criminal enterprise called United States of America? We are not fundamentally Americans to these people, and this is our time to prove it to ourselves and to them.
Well, it's only perfect that we start with Reverend Barber right now. Donald Trump is speaking, and literally, just as you finished, Greg, we hit the 200,000 folks who are watching us live.
Let's double it.
And so, folks, we're going to have clips after this here, but we think it's important for you to hear the state of our union from Bishop William Barber, one of the leaders of Moral Mondays, of course, co-convener repairs of the Breach Poor People's Campaign. He has a word for us. He has a direction for us. And so let's right now hear from Bishop William Barber.
Thank God for all of you who have gathered here tonight, and thank Roland for calling us and assembling us and pulling us together in community where more than 200,000 people have joined, and that number is continuing to grow. The assignment tonight is to wrestle with what is the state of our union. St. Augustine of Hippo out of Africa once said that wherever people say, or whenever people say the times are evil, it is essential to remember that we are our times. Or as James Bond once said it so clearly, responsibility can be abdicated, but it cannot be lost. As long as we claim to have a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, then we, the people, have a responsibility to guard our union. And we would be wise to begin by remembering what binds us together, though imperfectly, but remember what binds us together. Our ancient religious traditions teach us that love, justice, and mercy are the responsibilities not just of individuals, but of governments. In fact, Isaiah chapter 10 says, "Woe unto those who legislate evil and rob the poor and women and children of their right." It is a terrible thing to open the Congress, for instance, with prayer and pray, P-R-A-Y, and then go forth to pass policies that P-R-E-Y pray on the very people that God cares about the most. The poor, the widows, the children, those who've been pushed to the margin. One of our own prophets reminded us that Amos prophesied in God's name, "Let justice roll down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream." But if you read back up in Amos 5, that same text, those rivers of justice only roll down when a remnant of people come together and cry out in the streets, shut down the malls and everything, and declare, "Not on our watch." God says that when a remnant comes together that says, "Not on our watch, not now," then God says, "I will visit you and help you," and then justice will roll down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. Jesus was clear that nations, not just individuals, but nations, Roland, will be judged by how we treat the hungry, the thirsty, the naked, the stranger, and the least of these. Nations would be judged, not just individuals. And we can never forget that. We can never forget that nations will be judged, not just in some hereafter, but even now, nations will be judged, because how we treat the vulnerable is how we treat God. There is no way to declare in God we trust, but then the vulnerable cannot trust us with power or trust us with the realities of our government. Not only our moral traditions, but what Abraham Lincoln called our ancient faith, but also the commitments of our founding documents. Dr. King would never throw these documents away. He once said to America, "If I was in some other country, I might not protest like I do, but I protest here because you had the nerve to put it in writing and write it down on paper." The Declaration, for instance, of Independence, we hold these truths. to be self-evident that all persons, all men, are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, among which are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I see my dear lawyer friend in the house tonight, and she'll tell you that there's something else in that Declaration of Independence. It says that when there has been a long train of abuses, it is the duty, it is the responsibility of the people to rise up and to change that form of government. Our Constitution says we the people, in order to form a more perfect union. Right there, our own Constitution confesses that we are imperfect. And also, excuse me, that we have work to do. And part of that work is to establish justice, to provide for the common defense, to ensure domestic tranquility, and to promote the general welfare. Yes, welfare is in the founding principles of our nation and of this Constitution. Now, these words from both Scripture and our founding documents set a high standard for what any nation, particularly this nation, should be about. And when we hold the state of our current union over against this standard, we all must confess that our union in the hand of Trump and Musk, or Musk and Trump, and the current congressional leadership is pretty low down. It does not reach the high standard to which we are called. It falls far below the call of love and justice and mercy. It is far below the government of the people, by the people, and for the people that Abraham Lincoln called us to preserve. It is far beneath what even Franklin Delano Roosevelt proposed. Once Franklin Delano Roosevelt said, in these days of difficulty, we Americans everywhere must and shall choose the path of social justice, the path of faith, the path of hope, the path of love toward our fellow man. Then he said, on another occasion, 1937, I see 1/3 of the nation ill-housed, ill-clad, and ill-nourished. And the test of our progress is not whether we add more to the abundance of those who have much. It is whether we provide enough for those who have too little. And the global vision of peace that so many from this nation fought for, what we're seeing now is far below that. What we're seeing now is low down. It's far beneath the vision that Dr. King articulated when he stood on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial and told the nation about his dream for full realization of the promise of this nation that has been made for every one of us. Remember, the March on Washington, it wasn't just about the dream. It was about living wages, about education and voting rights and labor rights. Or remember when he preached and said, a country's true greatness is not measured by its material achievements like tall buildings, but by how it values and remembers its justice and equality. And it seems, he said, one time in the sermon, he said, it seems as though this morning that I can hear God speaking. And I can hear him speaking throughout the universe saying, be still and know that I am God. In America, if you don't stop, if you don't straighten up, if you don't stop exploiting people, I'm going to rise up and break the backbone of your power. The dark vision being followed by this administration is far beneath those lofty visions I just spoke of. And instead, they are rooted in some immoral ideas. And this dark vision demands that we embrace the call of the hymnists who taught us to sing in the second verse of one of our national hymns, America, America, God mend thine every flaw. God in this moment keeps trying to tell us something. Tell even this administration something. Think about it. The inauguration falling on the day that we remember the prophetic work and voice of Dr. King was, I believe, a warning. A first warning. America, don't let the nation go down this path without being maladjusted to the unjust and evil actions, the greedy and love of money actions, the power actions that forget the people. And now tonight, I think, is another warning Again, the first State of the Union is on the night before Ash Wednesday. Time of day when is a call for repentance. And I hear the Spirit saying again to the nation and to the current leadership, repent, yes, repent. I hear it saying to us, stand against it, resist it. Resist what you see happening. Repent of what you see driving this administration's effort. Their immoral philosophy can kind of be summed up in 8 statements. The first thing we see happening that we have to resist is the deliberate attempt to use executive orders as a way to intentionally violate the Constitution, thereby creating enough confusion to distract the people from what's really going on in the Congress that does have the weight of law. See, an executive order, family, doesn't have the weight of law. It can be overturned. But what the Congress passes can't be done that way. And there is some sense, Bannon has said it in a video, he said, we told the president to create 100 days of thunder. Do everything, do anything you want to do, so that while people are distracted, we can be working on undermining the so-called administrative state and putting things in place in the Congress. Secondly, we are seeing their philosophy is the tyranny of technology and the dehumanization of people. The third thing we are seeing is the attempt to make people justify their existence, which has its roots in racism and apartheid and slavery and fascism. You know, when you were in slavery, you had to justify your existence. You had to have a piece of paper. Apartheid, piece of paper. When the Nazis had their piece of paper, now someone with a computer sends a note over and says, prove to me that you're that. That is a dangerous philosophy to be pushing throughout this democracy. And then the fourth immoral philosophy is the denial of equality on every front. And the fifth one is the outright violation of freedom of speech, due process in the law, the attempt to undermine equal protection under the law for all persons. The 14th Amendment is what saved this country. Had not been for the 14th Amendment, you would not see the America, you would not have seen the progress that we have today. And anybody that messes with the 14th Amendment is literally trying to rebirth the country, but not in a good way, but in an unrighteous way. Birthright citizenship is the hallmark. If it wasn't for birthright citizenship, many of the slaves would have never been able to be citizens because their parents were born in Africa before they were snatched away. The sixth thing that we see is the outright betrayal of liberty. The seventh thing, Roland, we see is the idolatry of certainty, of the certainty of white supremacy. White supremacy operates on the premise that we are certain y'all are different. We are certain that we are better. We are certain that some folk matter and others don't. And the idolatry of certainty is one of the worst sins you can ever commit. To suggest that you are certain that somebody else is not created in the image of God like you. And when you begin to implement that into policy, it is dangerous. And then the eighth thing is the misuse of religious Christian nationalism in an attempt to falsely claim that their immoral actions are moral. To take religion and twist it, to make right wrong and wrong right. And that's why tomorrow morning, with fellow clergy and moral leaders from all of this nation's many traditions, we are gathering here in D.C. tomorrow with full vestments, standing in the prophetic tradition with heavy hearts, but also with committed spirits, determined to go into the Capitol, into the Rotunda. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how they're going to respond. But we tend to go to every congressional office to say, you're wrong. Repent. Because we hear the call of God and bear the sorrow of the souls in our care who are worried about their country. We're not coming together as Republicans or Democrats, but as faith leaders who know from our work in communities that our common life depends on our shared moral commitments. We are coming to issue a call for repentance and truth-telling. The because our political leaders in this current administration have betrayed our most basic moral commitment. And it's not just a momentary betrayal, it's a betrayal every day. Someone asked me the question the other day, what do you do when you have an administration in office that violates what God hates every day? You look at the 6 things that God hates: a proud look, shedding innocent blood, lying, stirring up the community. Every day, what do you do? We come from many traditions, but we are united by the moral proposition that Abraham Lincoln called our ancient faith, and the conviction that all people share an equality. In the face of a tyrannical king who refused to hear the positions of his subjects, this moral conviction that we are created equal and endowed with undeniable rights united our nation in its Declaration of Independence. When the tyranny of chattel slavery, not just slavery, but chattel slavery, threatened to destroy our nation, this moral commitment to equality and freedom sustained a long and painful struggle to not only preserve our union, but also to reconstruct it by guaranteeing equal protection under law. When the tyranny of white supremacy reasserted itself under the guise of separate but equal was constitutional, a moral movement of everyday people tapped the power of nonviolence to compel the nation once again to face the truth about equality and freedom and repent of the ways that it had been betrayed. We have struggled to realize a republic committed to equality and freedom in all. We've never finished the struggle. We're yet struggling, but we've made some headway. But these moral commitments have united us as a people. It's not been a perfect war. Moral commitments that we as Black people and other people are committed to justice has inspired a global community. It's amazing how "We Shall Overcome" has been sung from Alabama to Tiananmen Square. Now, many of these values are recognized as universal human rights as a basis for shared peace. However, the moral failure of our political leaders threatens all of this in a way that has been unseen in recent history. Watch with me now. They have the power, because of the apathy of those who think this is just an anomaly that will easily pass. They have the power because of the absurd abdication of responsibility by those who say nothing can be done. We cannot follow this apathy or this absurd abdication. We have to take action. We have to be advancing. We have to be fully aware. This must be our attitude. Now we must answer the call for full resistance. We are daring to say to America and the current leadership, you cannot hide behind false notions of exceptionalism and perfection. No, you must confess and repent, and if you won't tell it, then we will. That we have become subject in some ways to the tyranny of technology. That tyranny of technology awed by the possibilities of progress and the promise of limited growth. You know, Musk said on the CNN interview that he expected by 2035 all jobs to be replaced by computers and smart engines. Our political leaders in this group have allowed corporate power to go unchecked for decades. This is how we got here. Our courts have ruled that corporations should be treated like people and people should be treated like things. In the richest nation in the history of the world, poverty has become epidemic. It's the 4th leading cause of death. 800 people dying a day from poverty right here in America. Even though we know what could be done to end this death-dealing poverty, and we have the means to do it, we have allowed extreme inequality to foster and fester like a sore, like a raisin in the sun, in our common life. And then this false populism has emerged in response to pit us against one another across dozens of dividing lines. But we must not be divided because this is a crisis not of just democracy. This, my friends, is a crisis of civilization that is being orchestrated to tear apart democracy forever. Bannon said in one of his interviews recently, and I'll make sure that Roland puts it up if he's not already shown it. We want 100 days of thunder to allow them to do what they want, to take America to the golden age. Bannon said that this is war, all-out war. He said that their plan was to target 4,000 federal jobs, specifically, just like they targeted 2,900 precincts in the election, to target 4,000 federal jobs, because those 4,000 federal jobs control the other 10 million. And that 10 million controls a $5.5 trillion budget, and that budget is connected to $75 trillion in assets. My friends, they're not playing. This is not a time just for cute bumper sticker protests. Our faith traditions and moral traditions provide a firm foundation upon which to stand against the divide and conquer strategies of these extremists. In this moment, like never before, we must believe in a moral agenda that stands against systemic racism, labor exploitation, poverty, xenophobia, and any attempt to promote hate toward any members of the human family. We must be openly and deeply disturbed by the Trump, Musk, Johnson Republican agenda and never separate them. They're all one. One for all, and all for one. This is their focus on cutting programs for the poor to give tax cuts to the wealthy and big corporations and more money for the war machine and mass deportation. And we must tell the truth about what's going on, because you cannot organize a movement without an analysis. You have to have an analysis. You have to know what the real truth is, what the battle lines are. It's truth-telling time. And truth-telling in a time of lies is one of the most radical forms of nonviolent action and civil disobedience known to humanity. Only the truth can set us free. We say our people are afraid, but we must do the analysis to understand why they're afraid and what's causing their fear and what will remove their fear. We must tell the truth until everybody knows. For instance, Elon Musk, connected to South Africa, the unelected head of the new Department of Government Efficiency, announced in January that he aims to cut $2 trillion in spending, or 30% of the current federal budget. Tonight, as I walk through, I'm going to focus specifically on the budget, because one of the things you have to come to understand is that these people do not run for office to give out keys to the cities and certificates. When they run for office, they are running to write statutes and to control the money. That's their purpose. And so he wants 30% of the current federal budget. But without major cuts to the Pentagon and war spending or defaulting on interest payments. We must tell the truth, Barbara, that drastic slashing would be mathematically impossible without gutting vital programs, such as Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare. Every time you hear them say, we want to cut $2 trillion, you must understand that is mathematically impossible without gutting programs like Social Security and Medicaid and Medicare. We must tell the truth that while Republican leaders of the House and Senate haven't come to a consensus yet on the specifics of their tax spending plan, the Republicans in the House are aiming for what they call one big, beautiful bill that would make $2 trillion in cuts over 10 years. Now, you know what happens about 10 years from now is when the demographics shift in this country. And you no longer have a majority white country. First time in Western Hemisphere when the folk that were brought here as former slaves and the people who were brought here to work from Mexico and other Latin American places and black folk from Haiti and from Africa, those people brought in will become the majority. In South Africa, they were always the majority. But we've never seen this, where those who were the slaves and those who were the workers become the majority of the country that enslaved them. And that country has the greatest gross domestic product in the world. They say they want this budget 10 years, $2 trillion. The programs that are likely to be targeted include, let me tell the truth, first of all, in Medicaid. This is what the State of the Union is about. You need to know in Medicaid, the Republicans are considering changes that would shift billions in Medicaid costs to states that take its coverage away from millions of people. The House budget alone, my brothers and sisters, calls for $880 billion in cuts over 10 years. Medicaid is a joint federal program and state and federal program that gives health coverage to low-income people. Now, there are 140 million poor and low-wage people in this country. 60% of black people are poor and low-wage, that's 26 million. 30% of white people are poor and low-wage, that's 66 million. So when they're going to cut Medicaid that provides health coverage to low-income people, that means that cut is going to come straight down the heart of the black community. As of October 2024, more than 72 million people were enrolled in Medicaid. 72 million, excuse me. Another 7 million were enrolled in CHIP, the Children's Health Insurance Program. Somebody told me one day when I was sharing it with them, they said, Rev, that's boring. I said, that's your problem. People with evil intent operate in the border. They bet on you not paying attention to the numbers so that you really don't know and understand what's going on. Some of the proposals for cuts to Medicaid could result in a loss of coverage for 36 million people. We must tell the truth. Now what this means, in 2023, 39.5% of the total Medicaid enrollees were white. 18.5% were black. 29% were Latinx, and 4.7% were Asian. And the rest were native or multiple races. More than 7 million older Americans and 10 million people with disabilities also rely on Medicaid. So when you talk about cutting Medicaid, you're talking about cutting the heart out of coverage for poor and low-income people, and particularly cutting the heart out of the black community. More than 60% of nursing home residents rely on Medicaid. Y'all think about grandma and them right now, and auntie and them right now. This is what they're talking about cutting. Drastic cuts to Medicaid would reduce care and coverage. It would also close healthcare facilities, particularly the ones in the rural areas, and particularly those in the southern rural areas, where the majority of black people that are poor live in the South, and 1/3 of all poor white folk live in the South. We must tell the truth. We must tell the truth. Boston University Medicaid experts have stated that deep cuts would be catastrophic for patients. And we know what we've always said: when the rest of America catches a cold, black folk end up with pneumonia. Medicaid sure needs strengthening, but it doesn't need cutting. In the states that have refused to accept Medicaid expansion, do you know that all of them, except for about 2, are southern states? Southern states. Where large portions of black community live. They refuse to accept Medicaid expansion, hurting both poor blacks and poor whites. All of these southern states, we must tell the truth. They want to cut food assistance. They are considering a long list of proposals that would cut hundreds of billions of dollars out of SNAP. Not millions, billions of dollars over the next 10 years. The House budget resolution calls for $230 billion in cuts over the next 10 years. Remember what Isaiah said, woe unto those who legislate evil and rob the poor of their rights? Right now, these proposals could affect 40 million covered people. Watch this. In 2024, SNAP served 41 million people. 1 in 5 children. Of those who benefited, 37% are white, 26% are black, 16% are Latinx, 3% are Asian, and 2% are Native American. We must tell the truth. They want to cut Head Start. Many of us don't remember that Head Start came out of the Poor People's Campaign after Dr. King had been killed. That was one of the things that they won that summer in '68. Head Start preschool serves about 650,000 children around the country. And recently about 650,000 children around the country found they were locked out of a government website used to access grant funding. Many more people, children are in it than 650,000. The website went back online, but now some of them are still having problems. From 2020 to 2021, 37% of Head Start were Latinx, 27% were black, 24% were white, 3% were Native American. And the House budget resolution is calling for $300 billion in cuts over 10 years. We must tell the truth. You have to know the truth. If you don't know the truth, you're not going to understand why we have to be so serious about this resistance. In federal rental assistance, this program served 5 million poor and low-income households, 69% of whom are children, older Americans, or people with disabilities. At a time of housing affordability crisis, this program is already vastly underfunded. Nearly 23 million low-income renters pay over half of their income on rent, subjecting them to the risk of eviction and homelessness. And just a few weeks ago, or months ago, the Supreme Court ruled that you can't even sleep on a bench outside at night if you're homeless. The House budget resolution calls for $1 billion in cuts over 10 years. The truth is also that Republican Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, has said Republicans will not touch Social Security or Medicare. However, it's impossible to achieve Elon Musk's goal of $2 trillion in federal spending without going into Social Security and Medicare. You cannot do it. Social Security. In 2024, 68 million people received Social Security benefits. And in 2023, that program lifted 27.6 million people out of poverty. And black folk, we need to remember that when Social Security was first put in place in 1954, we could not pay in for the most part. Because the only people that were allowed to pay in were people that did not work in the agrarian culture or in the service culture, i.e. maids. They weren't allowed to pay in. 1935. We were allowed to pay in 54, the same year the Brown decision. So it was 19 years before many of our people could even pay into Social Security in the first place. And here we hear they want to go after Social Security. And as of 2021, 42% of Americans aged 56 to 64 had zero retirement account saved. Think about that. Upon retirement, many will be entirely reliant on Social Security, which paid an average monthly benefit of $1,800 a month. And this crowd is saying, in order to give more money to corporations, we're going to go after even Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. Even though they're saying they won't, but there's no way they can't. In 2024, Medicare provided insurance for 61.2 million older Americans and people with disabilities. Cuts to this program would leave millions of seniors struggling even harder to pay their health care bill. And if by now when you're sitting, you're saying this word, damn, that's the word you should be saying. That's the word. The same word Jesus used when he saw that fig tree fronting. That's what you should be saying. That ruthless. In 2023, 1 in 4 Medicare beneficiaries lived on incomes below $21,000, while half lived on less than $36,000. People of color have lower median incomes in their retirement years than white Americans, reflecting racial discrimination in education and employment and lower access to pension benefits. And yet, they're going to go after Medicare. In the taxes and inequality in 2017, the Trump GOP tax law delivered huge windfalls to these rich and large corporations. And you know, the corporations said, if you give us a tax cut, we're going to invest it back into the American society. What they did was they used that money to buy their own stocks and propped up their own company. And that first tax cut was more money transferred from poor and working folk than was transferred during the height of slavery. $2 trillion. The new House budget resolution calls for $4.5 trillion in tax cuts that will benefit the ultra wealthy. In the Republican-held Congress, they want to extend the 2017. Now, if they just did that, they want to do so much more. But if they just did that, the Joint Committee on Taxation estimates that it will cost $4 trillion in lost revenue over the next decade. The way that these people are moving, it could be possible for black folk and brown folk and progressive white folk to win offices and have the government to run, but not have any money to run it on. The benefits of this extension would amount to less than $1 a day for the bottom half of U.S. families, while the richest 0.1% of families would pocket an estimated $314,000 per year. This is the game that they're playing, and it is not a game. This group wants to go after child tax cut credit, even though we found that when you give child tax cut credit, they actually can relieve children from poverty. All the gains that we've seen in employment and wages, you've heard Roland talk about it, are now under threat as this Trump-Musk-Johnson administration and Republicans in the Congress push an economic agenda based on mass deportation, severe cuts to federal spending, and staffing at federal agencies. And you heard me say that their goal is to control 4,000 workers so that they can control 10 million workers. And when we talk about these cuts in the federal government and in the jobs, remember that decent job for black workers make up 18% of federal employees compared to 12% of their share of the total workforce. You have an administration where Scott Bessent, the President Trump's Treasury Secretary, and his Commerce Secretary, all said openly, with not a stutter, in their confirmation hearing that they did not support raising the minimum wage. The minimum wage has been stuck at $7.25 per hour since 2009. If you raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour, 43% of black people would come out of poverty with one raise. But they say, if you make $7.25 per hour and you earn $15,080 a year, you're not poor. You're on the lower middle income. So here we are. If we don't raise the minimum wage, and if we don't start understanding in our civil rights organizations that you have to connect voting rights and wages. Remember Dr. King in 1965, the end of the Selma to Montgomery March, he said that the greatest fear of the racist oligarchs in this country was the fear of the masses of black people and the masses of poor white people coming together and forming a voting bloc that could fundamentally shift the economic architecture of this nation. They won't raise the minimum wage while more than 1 in 5 black and Hispanic children are poor. And these children are 3 times as likely to fall below the poverty line. Trump wasted no time going after labor. No time. He illegally removed the board chair of the National Labor Relations Board, basically shutting it down, making it so it didn't have a quorum. It's worth adding that the $290 million that Elon Musk paid to influence the 2024 election is on par with the NLRB's $299 million budget. Unions we know down through life. We fought to get in union. I was telling Roland one day that in 1935, civil rights group and union folk came together to bridge the two, civil rights and unionism. And we wouldn't have some of the improved earnings and working conditions what we have today without the focus of unions. Those in unions, their wages are 13.5 times more than those who are non-union. This is the truth. And my friends, I know that sometimes we don't want to hear it and we want a cute bumper sticker or we want a rhyme. But these folk have a plan and it's very strategic. Just like Project 2025, it's written down. And you don't really know how big the fight is and how important the fight is unless you understand. Right now, they're talking about adding $345 billion in new spending to the Pentagon over the next 4 years. $150 billion spending to the Pentagon, $175 billion in mass deportations. And you say, well, Reverend Barber, so what does that have to do with anything? Because the Senate bill alone, $86 billion per year, would provide health insurance for all 4 million uninsured children. If we took that same money, we could expand the enrollment in Head Start for 3.6 million children in poverty. If we took that same money, you could provide public housing for all 3.9 million families who receive eviction notices in a typical year. The truth is, when we look at this is a constitutional crisis, which has not been resolved by a system of checks and balances. In violation of the law, Donald Trump and Musk and Johnson are abusing the power of the presidency. They're abusing it by allowing Elon Musk to freeze funding allocated by Congress. The courts have issued injunctions against these illegal acts, but Trump and Musk are defying the rule of law. While Congress has a responsibility to check this abuse of power, it has instead invited its rogue executive to address a joint session of Congress while instructing its committees to prepare a budget based on the same lies that have been used to justify the illegal funding freeze. We must be clear in this confession about the state of our union. Our moral ejection is not about personality. It ain't about style. It's not about political opinions. It's about the size of a government. It's not about the size of a government. It is about the tyranny of technology and our refusal to bow to the God of efficiency, because the distorted faith violates our moral commitment to equality and freedom that an imperfect government was fashioned to sustain. If people's lives and livelihoods can be dismissed as waste without due process, we forsake our moral commitments to equality. So we refuse to bow, because if an unelected technocrat can delete the financial commitments of a government established of and for by the people, we betray our moral commitments if we bow to that. Who knew that one person could give out all your information? That one person could walk in one office and tell one person to push one button and they had access to all of your information, and could then probably on the back end make it so that even if they give the information back, they still have access to it. We refuse to bow, because if political leaders are willing to forsake their oath to establish justice and ensure domestic tranquility in order to appease billionaires, if we bow, we reject our faith and the moral foundation of our common life. We refuse to bow because if Congress does not stand by our commitments to partners and vulnerable neighbors around the world, we will abandon the moral foundations of the fragile peace we hope to sustain. We have to refuse to bow. And the truth is, when and if our political leaders have bowed to fear, to the tyranny of technology, to greed, to supremacy, in doing so, they no longer represent us. A Yale professor just last week said Trump is no longer the president because every day he has violated his oath of office. And so tonight, my family, we who believe in love, justice, and freedom must declare that we are not afraid of the false god of efficiency. We must declare we are not afraid of lies. We're not afraid of greed. We're not afraid of injustice. We're not afraid of religious and white supremacy. And we must declare that bowing down is not an option. It's not in our spiritual or historical DNA. We will not bow to any tyranny that claims to have control of our common life, because we know that the people of our communities have power. We actually have power to reclaim our moral commitments. We have power, and it's going to take time, and it will take a sustained effort, but it begins by telling the truth. In South Africa, they used to say, only a dying mule kicks the hardest. Langston Hughes used to say that we must take back our mighty dream again. America's never been America to me, but I swear this oath that America will be. We have power. Did you know Trump, with all their money, won in the battleground states by a total of around 800,000 votes? But in those same states, millions of black people and brown people and poor and working white didn't even vote. And if we begin to organize now for 2026 and move and inspire and unite those votes, we can shake the power of this nation. And we have to, because bowing down is not an option. We must reclaim our government. We must reclaim pledging ourselves to the reconstructing of America. We must call on lifting every voice to sing. In 1850, the Dred Scott decision came down, Barbara, and it was a low-down decision. There was a low-down president and a low-down Supreme Court and a low-down Congress. And after the Supreme Court was stacked with slave owners, and they codified white supremacy into law with the Dred Scott decision, and they declared that Chief Justice Taney, who was rushed onto the Supreme Court, he gave in to the slave masters and ruled on the Dred Scott decision, saying that black folk in America didn't have any rights that white people were honored and bound to respect. And in the midst of that, one of the sisters of the movement saw Frederick Douglass depressed, and she asked Frederick one question: is God dead? Are you going to trust Taney? Are you going to trust God? Frederick Douglass said it shook him to his core. He said he had to speak. Got in a speaking engagement with the abolition group and said to them, earth and heaven will despise this edict of Taney. And I want my people to know, he said, as he talked to them, as monstrous as this moment appears, as monstrous as this decision appears, we can meet it in a cheerful spirit, because this very attempt to blot out forever the hopes of an enslaved people may be the one necessary link in the chain of events preparatory to the downfall and the complete overthrow of the entire slave system. Then he said the whole history of the anti-slavery movement is studied with proof that all measures devised and executed with a view to allow and diminish the anti-slavery agitation has only served every time to increase, intensify, and embolden our agitation. My brothers and sisters, justice-loving Americans, black folk, folk of conscience wherever you are, if Frederick Douglass, an abolitionist, could refuse to bow down in 1850s, then surely we must declare now that bowing down is not an option. They are afraid of you. They are afraid of your votes. They would not be working this hard to suppress you if they were not afraid. Trump and Musk, even the filing of executive orders is proof of fear, because they know they could never get it passed through the Congress. They are afraid. Their crowd is afraid. They are afraid of the power of love, the power of truth, the power of justice, the power of unity. They are all scared of our power, but they are betting that you will be afraid of them. But this is the time, as Frederick said, to increase, intensify, and embolden our agitation, and to declare that wanting to be a king or want to be king is only a king if we bow down. That's the only way it can be a king. is if we bow down, but bowing down is not an option. My knees and your knees are not made for bowing to a power-drunk neo-fascist. We bow only to God. Otherwise, we stand tall. When they attack everyday people with bad, mean, hurtful policies, we must stand tall and increase and intensify and embolden our agitation and say no. It's time for our pulpits to stand tall, to call on the people to increase, intensify, and embolden our agitation and declare not on our watch. In our protests, we must stand tall and increase, intensify, and embolden our agitation. If black and white folk and women and gay and straight and Christian and Jews and Muslim and Unitarian could do it 60 years ago in Selma, if they could stand tall and advance and never sound retreat, then surely we can stand tall now and intensify and increase and embolden our agitation. We must do it in our organizing. We've got to increase and intensify and embolden our agitation. We've got to stand tall because bowing down is not an option. It may take a mass call-ins, but we've got to increase, intensify, and embolden our agitation and stand tall. It may take mass nonviolent sit-ins. It may take mass pray-ins. It may take labor striking on election days to ensure that all the workers are out getting people to the poll. But that's all right. Whatever it takes, we got to increase, intensify, and embolden our agitation. It may take massive lawsuits and class action lawsuits of the people, but we got to stand tall. And if we stand tall, their plans won't work. As long as we stick together and stand tall in every precinct, stand tall in every voting district, stand tall in every city, stand tall in every state, stand tall, because what has been created and done can be undone. If we stand in the truth, stand in love, stand in justice, the God of the universe will be with us and change will come. Because when we stand with God's truth and God's love and God's justice, I learned this a long time ago. One can chase 1,000 and two can put 10,000 to flight. Because when we stand with God's truth and God's love, dark Fridays, mean political Fridays can become new Sunday mornings of mercy and righteousness. But when we stand with God's truth and love, ashes of repentance can become great moments of renewal. It's time, y'all. It's time, family. Wherever you are, sitting with a family out there in a church, sitting in your living room, thank God you're hearing this tonight. The lies and the greed cannot have the last word. It's time to increase workers' protests. People can put together their lawsuits. We can do all the kinds of ends we need to do because we love justice and we love righteousness and we hate injustice. We may have to do it all. I suspect we will. I suspect and prophesy tonight that when it gets warmer, you may see in America the same thing you saw in Egypt in places. You may see a fresh freedom summer, organic, just coming up. Because there comes a time, as Dr. King reminded us, people just get tired. Get tired. If they tell you as a worker, you got to leave your job illegally, why don't you just sit there, make them arrest you, and then file a lawsuit against you? Somewhere I read like that, I think we got the right to freedom of speech, we got the right to assembly, we got the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We'd have all these rights. It's time now to believe it, stand on it, believe it, don't back up from it. We in this moment must use every moral tool at our disposal and every nonviolent method to embolden and intensify our agitation for love and justice and righteousness. Stand up in every pulpit. Stand in every federal job. Stand and protest and expose what they're doing. Stand with every American, no matter who they are. If they believe in one nation under God, indivisible, with life, liberty, and justice for all, stand with them. Flood the congressional phone lines. Flood them with calls of protest and moral dissent. Stand up in the town hall. Go to their offices. Stand with facts and with faith. Stand and don't bow down and declare. As long as you got breath in your body, as long as you're clothed in your right mind, as long as you have a portion of health and strength, because you care about this generation and the generation behind you, stand up because God can do more with a remnant that will stand than a crowd that will bow. Stand, stand, and don't let anything keep you from standing, because bowing down is not an option now. God bless you. Lord help America.
Amen. Amen. Hallelujah.
I told y'all when we were doing this, I said why we were not going to carry the lies of Donald Trump, and he's still lying right now. And I said that we need to hear the state of our union from Reverend Dr. William Barber. That was so on point. It was so unnecessary. We've got a full house of folks joining us virtually. Reverend Frederick Douglass Haynes, the third Friendship West Baptist Church out of Dallas. My dear Alpha brother, glad to have you here. Pastor Robert Turner is still with us. We're going to get Pastor Tony Lee back on the phone in the studio. We've got Dr. Greg Carr, Department of African American Studies at Howard University. We've got Dr. Nola Haynes, Georgetown. Yeah, calm down. First of all, don't you even start. Don't you even start when Reverend Carr over there preaching. You over here giggling and laughing. We got Judith Brown. Brown Diana's director of the Advancement Project. We got Eugene Craig, who is a distressed Republican. We got Therese Garnier. She, of course, she served in the military. Know she's got something to say about the craziness that we're seeing from these folks. Randy Bryant, DEI disruptor, joining us. Jelena Turner, Jelena Porter, formerly of the State Department. Of course, Pastor Lamar is here as well. We're going to have CDC members. Y'all, we're going to show y'all a moment when my alpha brother, Congressman Al Green, stood up and walked the hell out of Donald Trump's speech. We'll do that in a second, but I'm just going to just quickly just go around, folks. I'm going to start with you. The word that Reverend Barber gave us, the direction that he gave us, just give us just your thoughts. That was something that we needed to hear, because so many people have been crying out saying, man, I just want something to happen. What do I do? Where do I start? Go ahead and kick us off.
Yeah, well, Roland, first of all, I want to thank you, because you are modeling what we need to be doing in this hour. What you're doing basically is applying what Kuji Jagalia, self-determination. We can speak for ourselves. That's how the Black press was born. And so I want to thank you for that. But also, we can pay our own way. If we do this, then we can also have our own message. Tonight, whatever mess was going on Capitol Hill, as you said, returning to the scene of the crime, that was a state of dissing the union. And tonight we heard from Bishop Barber a real state of the union, a real vision for where we need to go and how we can get there. And so I want to salute Bishop Barber for his prophetic witness. You heard tonight what real theology sounds like and looks like. Roland, you asked in the earlier session about, what the Black church needs to be doing. First of all, we need to get rid of white Jesus and embrace fully Black liberation theology, a theology that liberates and empowers. As long as we got white Jesus, it's going to be hell for Black people. And so what William Barber did tonight was basically articulate a theology of liberation. And then in the spirit of Sankofa, he reached back to what Dr. King has been telling us as he was being assassinated, and still speaks to this day. And that is, number one, understand that the demonic triplets of this country are now at work as never before. Racism, militarism, and economic exploitation, and the greed of capitalism. And so when William Barber brings back to the front of the stage our responsibility to the poor, our responsibility to those who are suffering and struggling the most. After all, This nation calls itself about God and Jesus. Well, Jesus said in the end, he's going to judge nations by how they treat the least of these. And right now it's going to sound like he's going to say, I was hungry, but you cut SNAP benefits. I was thirsty, and you had contaminated water in Flint, Michigan, as well as Seagoville, Texas, not to mention Jackson, Mississippi. I was in prison because of your prison industrial complex, and I was a stranger of color, and you did all you could to keep me out so you can go to hell. And the country's going to say, when Jesus, he's going to say, how you treat the least of these is what you've done to me. So Bishop Barber tonight reconnected us with the militancy of Martin Luther King Jr., gave us a vision of where it is we need to go. And now we got one responsibility, and that is to agitate, educate, legislate. And when we put together education, agitation, legislation, it's going to bring about the transformation of this country. And so here it is. As far as I'm concerned, William Barber just told us Freedom Summer 2025 has got to be what we are about.
Pastor Kenneth Whalen.
Economic empowerment, again, long game. Montgomery bus boycott 381 days. It achieved the end that it was intended to achieve. Our mayor here in Memphis has challenged black pastors to take a year, starting March 18th. Select a black-owned business in your neighborhood or in your congregation. Patronize that business on one day of the month or one day of the week. In 365 days, we are going to transform the economy of Memphis, Tennessee. God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound man. Sound man gives us strategy. Every pastor on this panel, every pastor watching, among the 245,000 or so people we've got watching, you can mobilize your congregation to implement a boycott in reverse. We ain't talking about not spending money with white folk, although we are, but we are focusing and being intentional on spending our dollars with black-owned businesses starting March 18th.
Let's go to Baltimore, Pastor Turner. You're up.
Yes, sir. So the speech was very empowering for me. One thing that faith leaders, we know how to do is, reading from our text, we know how to deal with kings. And we have a person occupying the White House who really doesn't want to be president. He wants to be king. And he's trying to act as though he is already king. Unfortunately for him, he's not a king. He's not even the president, really. He is not even the vice president. In my opinion, Elon Musk is acting president, and Vladimir Putin is the vice president, and Donald Trump is like a court jester. He's a joke, trying to assume powers of a king. But our faith teaches us that when we are encountering king-like personalities, that we have to mobilize and organize and activate. And that's one of the major things I really appreciate about Reverend Barber's speech is talking to us in a language in which we all understand, but challenging the faith community and people of faith in general to take direct action and be willing to put their lives on the line. And that's something that personally I identify with, even with my monthly walks from Baltimore to the White House. Because it is time for us to stop just talking and stop just singing and preaching, but time for us to take action.
Pastor Lamar, I said on this show a couple of weeks ago that what is required now are modern day Nehemiahs to rebuild the walls of resistance. And what I said on the show was that the beauty of Nehemiah having a vision, but he took it to the people, then the people said, let us rebuild. Because so the people are part of this. We got up to almost 250,000 folks watching live simultaneously. And what I'm trying to challenge them is, this is not just about what preachers are supposed to do, what civil rights organizations and others. No, we need the people to say, let us rebuild.
You know, in the moment of rebuilding, they had tools of building in one hand and the implements of war in another. And what I keep thinking about now is
because there were haters saying, y'all ain't going to let y'all finish this wall.
Oh, exactly. And they were designing death upon the people. So what I continue to think about is a song that we would sing growing up. He's a battle axe in the time of a battle and a shelter in the time of a storm. We have to be on war footing now. This is not going away. We came here loving and we came here fighting. If we're going to stay here, we must do both. Now, what you're doing with this media, with Black-owned media, you're taking us back to the best of the tradition of Black media. So from the mid-19th century up until the 1920s and 30s, we used the Black media to find each other. Mothers would write saying, I have not seen my son. Sons and daughters would write, I have not seen my father. We connected with one another and built loving environments that sustained us. We have to remember that there is something in them. I think Frances Cress Welsing was right in her assessment of this sense of something genetic that makes you want to put out the fire of love and joy. All we have to do is be beautiful, and they visit violence upon us. But what we do is we keep being beautiful. We keep being wonderful and extraordinary. And I really believe the only hope, Dr. Carr is right, this empire, there's something we say in the South when people are dying, it's called a death rattle. You can hear the American empire death rattle. Donald Trump is that rattling. Donald Trump is mucus in the lungs of the body politic, struggling for oxygen. We need to understand, though, that some things must die so that life can come. My grandfather told me when he was approaching death, I was sitting with him, he said, boy, when the fruit gets ripe, it falls from the tree. But what he also understood is that he had planted seeds. So we may not see him physically, but we would keep coming up, doing his work, cultivating, growing. That's what we've got to do. This is death. This is weakness. We know it. They know it. The question is, will we live into something different? And will we be prepared for the opposition? We must never, ever believe again that they let anything slide without a backlash. We think that we have won, and they are circling wagons again. So we've got to continue to love each other and continue to fight, continue to be human, and let none of what they do or say take that away from them.
Judith, that was New York Times had a piece. The New York Times had a story. They followed 11 Black folks, and they talked to a sister. Her last name was Wilder. She was a public school classroom aide. So this is what they wrote. Miss Wilder, a Democrat, said that she's in Milwaukee. Said that she didn't vote because she believed that Mr. Trump was going to win. Now she is preparing for what she believes he would do in office, in food assistance, Social Security, and housing assistance, among other programs for the poor. Quote, I already know that everything is about to end, so I've been trying to get myself together and look for better paying jobs, Ms. Wilder said. Racism was here before I was born. The battle I choose is employment. Can we get more pay? I work in the public schools and I make $17 an hour. That's not enough. Her name is Keosha Wilder. She's 39 years old. And I'm sitting here going, I didn't vote because I thought he was going to win. Baby, you in a battleground state.
That's right.
And that was part of the problem. There were too many folk who thought the same thing, and then by not voting, they made sure he was going to win.
Sitting back. I mean, it don't make no sense, right? There's no logic behind that. To sit back and not participate in an election where fascism and authoritarianism is on the ballot is crazy talk. Now, for some people were hoodwinked, some people were bamboozled, others just tuned out and let this go. But I think Reverend Barber, reminds us that first, when he talked about a king, he's telling us that in order for there to be a king, people have to bow down. Sitting on the sidelines and not voting is bowing down. It's capitulating to what is to come. And for people to sit out when we are people that don't bow down.
in order to be a king, for someone to be a king, that means that there are subjects. The people who were once considered chattel in this country will never be subjects again. And so for us to think about this moment, we have to do what he said. Reverend Barber talked about we're going to litigate, lawyers like me, we're going to go to court, etc. But I always say the revolution will not be litigated because these courts are not our courts. This law is not our law. But the difference is going to be whether or not we are going to stand up. We are going to, 92% sisters, oh, we on vacation. Get your ass on vacation right about now because we don't have time for that. We have to be in the streets. We have to be organizing. We have to be advocating. We do have to be suing, and we have to be voting. That sister did the FAFO, whatever that thing is. And now figuring out that lives are on the line and you sat home and you're sitting with the guilt of that. Never again.
You talk about a king. Now, Freddie Haynes accuses me of encroaching upon the territory of preachers. I told him that ain't what I do. But when called, I'm gonna do what I have to do. Jelena, I did a segment on this show where I said America wanted a king. You got a king. But I can remind people in 1 Samuel when the people of Israel said, God, we want a king. He's like, hold up, y'all got me. No, we want a king. He went, I'm going to give you a king, but I'm going to tell you what the king is going to do. He told them in advance how evil the king was going to be, and they still wanted one. These fools out here, they said in advance what they were going to do. So all this crying now, I'm like, hold on, y'all wanted a king. Now y'all got him. So these farmers in Kansas, in Texas, who mad about losing $2 billion in USAID money. These other folk, veterans who voted for Trump, now whining and crying. I saw some guy on Wall Street say he voted 3 times. This was not what we voted for. There was a teacher in Kentucky. She said, this is not what we voted for. No, boo. The king told y'all what he was going to do. Now they all of a sudden regretting it. But our whole deal is, as Reverend Barber said, we can't bow down in this moment, and we can't bow out. Speak to that.
I think, well, that's a lot. So let's unpack that, okay? First of all, the Trump campaign, that's what they did. They campaigned on cacophony. They campaigned on confusion. They campaigned on chaos, right? So they said, hey, all we have to do is manipulate. We're going to tell you we're going to do all these things and then focus on what we're going to do in the background. So, for instance, right now, Trump has put us in the middle of a trade war. He has stopped military funding for Ukraine and obviously dismantled USAID, among other things. But remember when he was talking about taking over Greenland and Panama Canal? Like, what happened to all that, right? Just noise and talk. But if that's how a king acts, that's what they want. That's what they got and they voted for. And the young lady we're talking about, she's not the only one we've seen. There were a lot more people who actually did go out and vote for Trump, and lots of white people, to be frank. And they're like, listen, they've radicalized me now because I don't have access to IVF or whatever the stories are. But I think what we've done, obviously, there's been a dangerous precedent. Obviously, we've seen or we've heard in some of the speech tonight, we've had one of our own CBC members who left her, I think, got kicked out of the room for disobedience. And I want to go back to something that
Congressman Al Green, we're going to show
Al
it,
Green.
and he stood up and said, shame on all y'all.
Right, but I want to go back to something that Congressman Carter said earlier, and I can appreciate it because I like that we have kind of the inside-outside baseball with some of our CBC members. We had some who were like, listen, I'm just not going to go.
Also, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett walked out.
And we love her too. But we also have members like him who are like, I'm not going to let this wannabe king, even Elon Muscle baby said, hey, you're not the president, right? He got told by a little child, you're not the president. I'm not going to let this man.
Shut your mouth.
Shut your mouth. I'm not going to let him scare me out of doing my job that I got elected to do. And for those of us in this room who have been the first or the only in all white or spaces that don't look like us, you need to be there to make yourself seen and to make them be uncomfortable. Because Trump shouldn't be able to go there and think like, I'm just talking to my homies and this is what I'm going to do. Mm-hmm. He needs to see us. We need to be there and be present and make our presence known.
Therese, 30% of the federal government are veterans. And Lord, a lot of them who voted for Trump, now they crying because they getting laid off. And I'm sitting here going, He didn't love veterans. That man don't care. He skipped out on the war and he said, what did he say? He said, trying to avoid STDs was his personal Vietnam. That's literally what that fool said. And so he didn't. Also, all these people who fell for that nonsense, he didn't love the military. Now they learning.
Yeah, they learning real quick. There's 3 issues that I take with the felon in chief. First and foremost, this war that he's causing with our allies. He's putting military service members in danger by doing this. They're already saying they're not going to refuel our carriers. Okay, that's just step 1. Okay, secondly, all these veterans that are complaining, we voted for him and we're, how could he do this to us? You knew what was coming. He's been saying this. Even
For the
the
folks
first
at home, you served. How long did you serve?
I served a total of 7.5 years.
Go ahead.
Okay, so Air Force and then National Guard. So you have these individuals who voted for him who say, oh, we didn't expect him to do this, but he's been saying this. As service members or as military, if our commander-in-chief says they're going to do something, we're going to assume that they're going to do it. So for them to come back and say, well, we didn't think it was going to be this bad. No, the issue was you didn't think it would impact you.
Boom.
Yes. You did not think it would impact you. So that's my third issue that comes up. Now we have veterans who did not vote for him, including myself, who are now being fired, who can't get health care, who are having all these other issues, who served their country valiantly, honorably. And now we have to fight for health care somewhere else because...
And they're doing massive cuts to the VA. They're looking at cutting benefits as well. And so all the Republicans, they all been lying about how much they love the military.
Absolutely.
They love to send troops to war, but not take care of them when they're at home.
They like the idea of it. They like to claim that they're patriotic, but they don't follow up with it. And Trump, throughout his first presidency, he made fun of different service members who were held as prisoners of war. I mean, he has time and time again shown that he does not respect the military, and yet we have service members and veterans who still voted for him. And now they're crying. And I see these posts all the time, and I'll comment and say, you know what? As a service member myself, I don't feel, or as a former service member myself, I don't feel sorry for your situation because we tried to tell you, but you didn't care because you didn't think it impacted you. And now it does. And so now we're in this predicament that now we have to try to rally them all together. And we still got veterans who are saying they still love him after being fired by him. I don't understand that. But, at this point, I'm just praying that people will start getting some common sense and start fighting back. Whether it's through words, whether it's showing up and protesting, this being nice and sending letters and woo rah rah, that's not going to do it anymore. And as someone that's in the military, we believe in force if needs be. So some people need to be thinking, what do we need to do to make sure our voices are heard?
No, well, that was a Democratic group who released some research and data that they were sending around. And let's just be real clear, that data was to appease the white people. And one of the things that they said in there was, hey, don't really bring up USAID, don't really bring up DOGE because that's popular among a lot of people. But the USAID, the reason that's important because the reality is folk are about to die. They've already died. And I've specifically been calling out these fake conservative evangelicals because these fake evangelicals ain't saying nothing about folks dying. So I'm like, I thought y'all were pro-life. And the reason folk need to stop acting like USAID is because these people run around and say, well, we should stop spending the money abroad. There's a reason we do that. Because that also plays, that's called the soft part of diplomacy, as opposed to the hard part, which utilizing troops. You start doing that, you're about to really open the door for Russia, for China, but also for ISIS and the recalibration of Al Qaeda.
Absolutely. Diplomacy first, right? And first and foremost, I want to say that thank you for your service, I feel is empty. But as a national security foreign policy person, both my parents were in the military, including the Air Force. And a lot of my work includes military folks. I truly admire the sacrifice that you all make for this country. And what is happening now to veterans boils my blood. My mother, who just died a year ago, was 100% disabled because she was injured when she was in the military. And that is how she lived. That is the money that she lived on because she was unable to work. And to hear veterans, you already you already kind of have to tussle with the VA like it's a dance. It's a whole nother language that you learn. So it was already a very interesting system to kind of navigate. But now it is virtually impossible for people who serve this country with their body, bones, and blood to recoup any benefits from serving their country. So I just want to say that first and foremost. In terms of our adversaries now, allies, threats, real threats around the world that are looking at us, they have been literally watching their little clocks like, okay, we're going to see which way this is going to go. And one of the things that I think about a great deal is that we are definitely open to kinetic attack. We are open to extreme espionage. The workers who were let go, they are rightfully angry. How do you handle a group of folks who know things?
There was a report that Russia and China said, oh, they are targeting.
That's what I'm saying.
Federal workers.
Yes. Let me tell you something. The people historically in this country that have spied against this country were mad about not getting a job promotion or feeling left behind. How do you think American federal workers feel today about their government right now, right here and now, right? How do you think people feel right now? And, you know, this entire, I say this thing where none of this is sustainable, and it isn't. You know, you are firing people. You're not paying attention to what office, expenditures. You're not doing this carefully line by line. You are taking a hacksaw, and not are you only doing that, but then you are also sullying these people's reputations so they cannot get work after this. You are saying that they have poor performances. That is how people go into the world after their federal government stints and get other paying jobs. It's by their job performance. What do you get out of firing people and then cutting off their ways to get future employment? How evil, how cruel must you be? And when I think about what Reverend Barber was saying tonight, and you know, I sit here wearing multiple hats, and right now I'm gonna dive into my MDiv hat a little bit. And what I want to urge is when we are talking about the very crucial moment that we are in now, and we are talking about Black coalitions. I'm a Black Catholic, born and raised in New Orleans, Louisiana. 3 million of us, 3 million, including not just folks from Louisiana and Maryland and Baltimore, but also our diaspora brothers and sisters, right? And then also there are 2% of the Muslim Black population. We are talking about almost 10% of other faiths that need to be part of this conversation. That's just something that's really important to me because we are often left out of these conversations. And I know the Black church plays such a huge role in what we are doing, but this is all hands on deck.
As another Black Catholic, I second that.
Hey,
We got an inclusion here.
we know what we know.
I was born and raised in the Black Catholic Church. Black Catholic churches are part of the Black church. Black Catholic churches were more Black church than Catholic.
Yeah.
Let's just be real clear. Our Lady Star of the Sea Catholic Church in Houston.
Okay, I'll say
I mean, because see, that Catholic church was founded in my grandparents' living room. Watch out now. Was founded in their living room. Clarence and Imelda Lamont.
And those nuns,
that was
the
a
nuns
Black
go hard too.
Catholic church.
Nuns go hard too.
Right. No, that's right. Randy, in Trump's line speech, of course, they yell, "Merit is back," which is hilarious because he didn't introduce some of these grossly unqualified people earlier in his cabinet. But the thing, we played a video yesterday where there was a sister who started crying. She was the chair of a water board, and she started crying. So two engineering degrees, all these different degrees, because this white Republican was jamming her up on DEI, and she had to take a while to collect herself. And I understand. I said, I'm not talking to you. I said, but damn that, I'm not letting these white racists break our folk down and cry. We gotta understand. It's a bunch of grossly unqualified, can't do any of these jobs, white folks. And so when Trump stands up there and the rest of them yell, holler, and scream, who's not qualified, they yell DEI, but that plane crash with 67 folks died. then when they find out all the pilots were white, on the plane and the helicopter, that story went away. But this is a moment where we got to just learn how to tell some folk, y'all can kiss my ass. I'm not about to sit here and defend my integrity and my academic pedigree with some folks who can't even carry a lot of our suitcases.
I know people are very offended by what's happening with DEI, and I understand why this, sister broke down and cried. But this is it, that we should feel so incredibly complimented. The fact that here we are brought over here as property, that we were, raped and used, and these people have 400 years ahead of us. And to create some initiatives, something aspirational to say, we're going to create some diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives to give other people a chance. Now, let's just be really clear. It wasn't just for Black people, but I know that they marketed it as such because they knew that people would accept the ripping apart of it if it weren't about Black people, right? And so the fact that that's all we've had, I mean, everything else has literally been us by our grit. They gave us, the worst vegetable at the time, and we made collard greens. They gave us the innards of the pig, and we made chitlins. Like, we have always made something out of nothing. And then we have these initiatives to say, hey, let's just be aspirational to have a diverse workforce, because the world is changing anyway. Let's have pay equity, maybe pay people the same for what they're doing. Let's make it where everybody feels included in this workforce. And they're so threatened. They're so threatened and scared of us. The little bit they gave, they said, we're going to wipe it away. Should be a huge compliment to us. I don't even know how we made it this far with nothing. To be honest with you, we are miraculous. So there's a video going around saying that Black people are walking miracles, and indeed each of us one is. Everyone watching today is. So I understand right now that it is frustrating. But what I will say is that they can't stop the world from being diverse. The numbers are going to be the numbers.
White folks ain't about to have that many new.
They can't, right. So we're going to be here.
They ain't going to have time to go to work because they're going to be screwing that much.
Right? And we are not going to stop being great. We're not going to stop being who we are. As you've seen what has been happening, here you have this I can't even call it administration. The circus has come to town, and the clowns have rolled out, and you still see with all these that Black people are still just doing their thing.
We are.
And so, listen to Reverend Barber today when he said that we can't sit this out. We never have. And even when we talk about the 92% and the 88% kind of chilling, I don't really know any of us who are. I think what we're doing is what we've done tonight, and is that we are hyper-focusing on each other right now. We tried to get everybody. We tried to tell everyone, come on, y'all, this is the way we got to vote. This will help all of us. But they didn't listen. And so I think right now we are gathering our nuts, right? And we are preparing for the winter, because we know sometimes it's going to be a little dark and cold, but we got this. Because we've always had this. We've always had it. So diversity, equity, and inclusion, people ask me, what do I think is going to happen? It will be renamed.
It will. Yeah.
It will be renamed, rebranded, but you can't wipe it away.
Eugene, we are not seeing profiles of courage from Republicans. And I'm laughing how now they're trying to avoid town halls because folks are kicking their behind. It's going to be a lot more people kicking their behind because when they watch all this shit, like Trump still running his mouth, still talking, and all he's doing is constantly lying the whole time. And look, they about to find out, and they are finding out.
And real time, look, you're dealing with a party, you're dealing with people that first and foremost, let's go back about 15 years. A lot of them came to power via town halls. They came to power during the Tea Party wave. So you're dealing with people that are literally, and I like to sort of go, we can quote, baptized in fear. They're fearful of Elon Musk, they're fearful of Trump, they're fearful of their own voters. The fact that the NRCC is telling their members, do not talk to your voters, is literally nuts. And it's because they understood. Look, in 2010, you had, Freedom Works, which was down the street from here at the time. You had Heritage, you had Groundswell, you had a lot of these organizations coming together and literally funding the Tea Party movement. They're saying, hey, these are fake protesters. because at the time when Democrats had town halls around Obamacare and the stimulus package, they planted fake protesters and they sent Fox News out to cover the fake protesters. So in their mind, when they see real protests, they're thinking it's fake protests, when in reality, you have disgruntled federal employees that were illegally, per federal judge, laid off from their job. You have, cities and states and localities that are going to be affected by budget slashes. Speaker Johnson now is terrified that they may not be able to get Trump's package or agenda done because he's going to need Democrat votes.
They won't.
You already lost Massey. Massey's gone. So you lose another one, it's a wrap.
That's right.
So the thing is this, right? I think Democrats, are in a unique situation. I say this as a Republican, a unique situation. You're in where Republicans were in 2009. But Republicans made a decision to do everything in their power. Democrats have to make a decision to do everything in their power to stop Donald Trump. These special elections that are coming up, get ready for them. Hey, guess what? If Elise Stefanik gets appointed to UN ambassador, her district's borders Canada. Doug Ford said today, listen, you give us a tariff, your electricity can cut off.
Yeah.
You know who district borders that? Elise Stefanik's.
Right.
You just had a Democrat win an Iowa in our 24th district. So my thing is this. You're dealing with the party baptized in fear. We're literally right now, Padme said on Benjamin V that, the Republic dies with thunderous applause, and that's what we're seeing right now with this address to the joint session of Congress. But, there's always new hope. We're hoping tomorrow, hurry up. But in order to get there, folks got to fight like hell.
Greg, if that was a moment, I think back to the massive Black Lives Matter protests. In May 25th will mark the 5th anniversary of the death of George Floyd. You referenced earlier how Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk and these white boys, they want Derek Chauvin to get a pardon. Sorry, fool, he got convicted in the state. And so ain't no Republican governor in Minnesota, and Trump, you ain't got no control over state. And you can see who they want to be as their leaders, as their martyrs. They bring back the Tate brothers. Charged with sex trafficking, hailing them up as their heroes. And what I'm saying, to the folks, a lot of those folks who are protesting on college campuses and other places for Gaza, where y'all go? To the Black Lives Matter folk, I'm like, if there's a moment for you to come back and hit the streets, this is it. The earlier panel was right. Public pressure in the streets has an impact on court cases, on public opinion. But folks staying quiet gives the impression that everybody is good with it. And so I don't think folk can be quiet about this moment. There should be massive protests in cities all across this country saying, hell no, we're not accepting this.
Right.
Of course, I agree. Reverend Barber laid it out, and it was interesting as he was talking and looking at Trump, the parallels, community, nation, identity, everything on the other side, rage, lies. And, there was a long article in the New York Times Magazine this weekend by David Leonhardt about Denmark, most progressive country in the world, arguably. Social welfare, college all the way through graduate school. And the one area that they're criticized on is immigration. They are very intolerant of immigration. But the idea is that they have a culturally homogenous society. So the idea is that because they come out of the same culture, generally speaking, people are willing to buy into something where those who have more money will take a little bit off to take care of everybody else. That is not the situation here. And that's why this country will collapse. Because what Reverend Barber was talking about is something they don't understand. There is no common culture in this country.
Right.
So when you pull Abraham Lincoln to them, they think, what the hell are you talking about? And I must, again, thinking about what you just did, Reverend Lamar, that's the kind of theology that we brought on those boats with us. I don't call it Christian, I don't call it Muslim or Jew, that's African spirituality. That was the basis of Bodum, the Haitian Revolution. That was the basis of Nat Turner. That was the basis of Harriet Tubman. And I'm saying You have to understand there's no common culture here. What we saw tonight, and he's still talking, that looked like Lenny Riefenstahl, Triumph of the Will, the Nuremberg rallies of 1934 with Hitler, who was a Christian nationalist. National Socialism was a Christian move. I don't know what that sign that Elon Musk made when he stood up, but it wasn't no random hand policy. This guy was sending another message. I'm saying all that to say this. The diversity that you're walking us through, very important to understand. The only diversity in a white nationalist secular state is whiteness. The diversity of whiteness, Italians and Irish and Spanish, they all become white. The only type of equity is an equitable distribution of whiteness so that the poor whites will rally with the rich ones against everybody else. And that means the ultimate inclusion is to make sure that whiteness stays monolithic. God bless Reverend Barber. God bless the monolithic. But I think Martin King had a very different conversation in that last book, Where Do We Go Here from Here, Chaos to Community. He's not anchoring that in patriotism. There's a spiritual dimension. And the only other thing I would say about that is what we saw tonight in terms of a tangible strategy. Al Green walked out. We saw Ilhan Omar walk out. We saw Bernie Sanders walk out. I don't know who's left in there right now.
You know, in fact, we had some members who stood up, took their jackets off, had shirts, and said
resist, including Jasmine Crockett. No question. And what I'm saying is that ultimately, that type of resistance now, we haven't reached the stage now where you're going to see it go to the brink. Eugene is right. The reconciliation process, when these white boys had to put their name and their vote on, where you going to cut? It was good to pass a resolution, but now we got to talk about Medicaid directly. Now we got to talk about Social Security directly. The resolution process, maybe that's why Hakeem Jeffries is keeping his powder dry, although everybody's reporting now that the Democratic Party is leaderless. I'm not sure I disagree with that, but at this point, they will go to the bricks in the process that way. The lawyers, and Rev, we saw what y'all did to the Proud Boys. That was with a law firm that said, we're going to do this pro bono and help you. But these boys just attacked the white shoe firm that backed up Jack Smith and took their security clearances, meaning what? When they go after Smith, his lawyer's not going to be able to get the federal documents they're going to need to defend them. They're trying to now threaten the bar. All of that having been said, we will not make common cause with these people. They are enemies of our common humanity. Calling them Hitler is too generous. It's too generous. Then we saw the Bund rally before the election, and here what we're saying, this is like Nuremberg in 1934. You can't make common cause with them. There's no common language you can speak with them. You got to roll over them like the sea. And it starts with black media.
And Roland,
that does that.
on this issue of protest, you know, the stakes of protest are much higher right now.
Yes.
So we have to be clear. For black people, we are taking a risk. If you look at what happened in Atlanta with folks who protested against the construction of a $30 million facility to train cops who will be killing our people down the road, right? After George Floyd is murdered, etc. People got charged with RICO charges.
That's right.
In Atlanta, there are states, many states have passed anti-protest laws because Republicans know the power of protest. They passed anti-protest laws upping the ante.
Did you see
so that you can get? There are states. Yes, there are states where you can get. If you are blocking a street now, someone can hit you with their car and there's no liability if you were in a protest that was not under a permit. And so, and so Trump's doing this new tweet about college campuses. We're going to deport you. We're going to arrest you, et cetera. We're going to expel you. By the way, you can't do that, Trump. That's not your job. Anyway,
but the military judge advocates, though, he got rid of judge advocates in the military.
Right.
So now
but the point is that the ante has been upped because they understand that dissent is a powerful thing.
Right. That's right. That's right.
It's up. I think Hakeem Jeffries is doing the right thing and just getting the hell out the way. You want complete control of government? You got it. No. You want to? No. The Republic. Listen. Hear me here.
And say because I said the anti's up, that didn't mean that don't protest.
No. I'm not saying. I'm not saying don't protest. What I'm saying is this: Republicans want a trifecta in government. You wanted both houses. You want the presidency. All right. I think Democrats in House and the Senate are doing the right thing by not giving them a single vote on any consequential piece of legislation. When it comes to this budget, You figure it out and you own it. Let the natural wings of the Republican Party cannibalize each other. And then they'll dispose Speaker Johnson, put somebody else in, and go through the process all over again.
I think a lot.
And more importantly, the two special elections already in the books in Florida, and the one coming up in New York.
Right.
You got to fight like hell in them.
I think a lot of people, first of all, don't even understand the basics of Congress.
Yeah.
The reality is, on the House side,
That's right.
Democrats are severely limited what they can do.
Yep.
The reality is, the Senate, one senator can do a lot of stuff. They can hold up nominations, things along those lines.
That's right.
And so the reality is, there's not much they can do on the House side. And so when I listen to these people, when I listen to a lot of these folk who are attacking House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries, I'm sitting there going, okay, so what are y'all actually suggesting? They can't actually define it. And so I get the whole point about how you speak, messaging, things along those lines, having the right messengers, sending the folk out there. But that's also a representative of just what happens with mainstream media, who they trying to talk to. So to me, that's a whole bunch of process stuff. I think the most basic fundamental thing, Pastor Lamar, which we've been talking about, is this notion of having a fight in you, saying something, doing something. Somebody suggested, I saw a tweet that they said that this weekend Democrats should have 435 town halls in every congressional district in the country, and I agree. I've said, and I've texted Ken Martin directly. I said, every time you see one of these folks who have been impacted, who have been fired, I said that's when it should have filtered down who's in each state, going to their state chairs, going down to their county chairs, and driving it down, because you got to put a face on it. You got to make folk realize that that's actually somebody right there, and too often that's what's not happening. But I need our people to realize this ain't a time to only go to brunch, to only try to get your passport stamped. Come on, I ain't got no problem with travel. I ain't got no problem with any of that. But the problem I'm having is when we check out, I'm looking at our vote totals. I'm looking at the number of elections that our numbers have been going down. And my problem is, if we're not maximizing our voting power, we make it that much easier for them to win.
I was watching the documentary about Walter White recently. Did you see it?
Yeah.
Extraordinary. And the thing that keeps sitting with me is that these leaders innovated something that heretofore had not existed. The strategy of Walter White, along with Charles Hamilton Houston, they were building on the work of Pauli Murray. They innovated something new jurisprudentially. What I am hoping that we can understand is what the new thing is that must emerge. Something is struggling to be born, and I believe that our vocation is that of midwifery.
Yes.
We have to set the stage for the thing to be born and for it to thrive. Now, birth is not easy, bloody, painful. And as the thing is coming, it is always teetering on the precipice of death until it can finally get here. So and a big piece of what has to come, I was paying attention to this guy. He's written a media theory. I think he's a little wacky, but what he says is true, that our institutions have followed communication. So we grew up with Walter Cronkite. You watched him, that's the way it was. You didn't have all this different stuff. Now, media is fragmented.
Yeah.
And that means that our institutions have been fragmented by the communication. So we've got to figure out how in our moment we hitch up with technology. So Richard Allen and Absalom Jones, the two Africans in the continent first to get a copyright, used the printing press to refute what they were saying about Africans in Philadelphia during the Yellow Fever. King and those during the movement used television, another technology, to bring into the homes of Americans who would deny their violent white supremacy. You couldn't deny what you saw in your living room on that black and white TV.
Right.
What we have to do
But before King used television, he was in Ebony and Jet.
Exactly. Using the black media.
He used the black media. It was black press that set the stage But then when their lives were in danger, then white media covered the movement. Right. But even when they went Little Rock, the black press was in the living room with Daisy Bates. So the point there is, if you do not have black media there, because you can't wait for the white folk to show up, because they're gonna always be late.
Always.
White media's gonna always be late.
Oh, they're they come. But you know, you just raised something very interesting, and it speaks to that novel theory, perhaps. Because you're right, these thugs now, they're taking all the leashes off. Like I said, it was one thing to get rid of Chief Brown, but these judge advocates, the ones who say that's illegal, to get rid of them is a serious step. But this new strategy, like you said, they used the 14th Amendment. And we're still talking about the 14th Amendment, which in some ways is the thread that stitches this country together because it makes the federal enterprise work. The Fifth Amendment was on, obviously. But what about the First Amendment? And when you mentioned King, it made me think, okay, New York Times versus Sullivan, which they're trying to kick the teeth out of that came out of Fred Gray and them. That's the case that made the Supreme Court out of the New York Times and the ad in the New York Times Court Spring Speech. The black press now faces Black Star Network being tip of the spear in this. They're going to try to make it illegal to say anything about them. And so, but I'm saying in terms of freedom of association, the First Amendment, a novel approach. I think we have underutilized two amendments. One from the Reconstruction era, the 13th. Because if you look at Gamillion versus Lightfoot voting rights case out of Tuskegee, that was a 13th Amendment case. They didn't use the 15th in a way. I mean, badge of servitude is something we should revisit because if we're going to put all our marbles out, Ketanji Brown Jackson has been fighting like hell for the 14th Amendment. She's outnumbered, but there are novel theories we can develop. But the other amendment finally is the first. Right. And I'm saying it this way. If you're going to go for vouchers, if you're going to pancake public education and go for charter schools, then we want the charter schools for our black church schools and we want the tax money. What? No, the First Amendment. Since y'all love the First Amendment so much, but see, we have such a deep investment in the idea of America as a concept that we are blind to the fact that it has never been a nation. We need to fight fire now with fire. Pull back on this imaginary myth making and take some of their tactics and we come up with a novel theory. I'm not saying going all the way, but we need to, everything needs to be on the table.
This is why, I mean, first of all, for folks, and Glenda Carr, I see you there. I know Melanie Campbell's here, so y'all just hold tight 1 second. The thing that, why tonight was so important when we decided to do this. And I really want everybody who, we hit 250,000 tonight. We still are, we're 4 hours in and we still at 177,000. But when I sent the text out and I said, we're doing this, Reverend Barber's going to be speaking, we're not carrying Trump, don't watch the networks. I said, let's hit 100,000, spread it to your friends, family. I sent it out. My expectation, because of what we've done previously, really was 25,000. Because I know what the numbers are. I know what we've had before. But in the last 48 hours, and this is when, and I need people really to pay attention. Because see, I need a lot of our folk, we keep acting like old black people are somehow irrelevant. I was in a chat room and they were talking about how we need to be teaching our old black people YouTube. And I said, oh, y'all have no, I literally said, y'all have no idea what the hell y'all talking about. I said, the highest group of folk who watch this show, if you look at our YouTube dashboard, if I pull it up, and if it says, I can pull it up right now, it says in the last 28 days, we had 32 million folk who watched. If I hit analytics and then I hit audience, the highest percentage of people watching, 65 plus, is 30.8%. Wow. I said, so y'all acting like older black folk can't find it. I said, that's the highest. Right. I said, hell no. I said, I travel the country. These black people know how to find. They like, no, baby, I see you. So nearly every text I got was my grandmama or the matriarch of our family put this in the family chat. And that thing reverberated. And earlier we were just all talking, and four of us they were like, man, yeah, my mama, my grandmother, they were all talking about it. That's how we hit 250. Cause them black grandmothers were like, no, y'all gonna sit y'all ass down. Y'all gonna watch this here.
Which now more than one person was watching too. You ain't captured
There
it.
you go.
Yes.
So people need to understand the reason you have to have a mass medium because show me any other way. I need people to understand what I'm talking about. 250,000 people were watching this simultaneously. That is 3 Louisiana Superdomes.
Yep.
That's Essence Festival sold out 3 times. See, we keep underappreciating the value of media. The ability to reach 250,000 people at the same time, simultaneously.
Yes.
There is no other black platform tonight that can say that. Because black radio wasn't carrying this. Black radio has not been on for the last 4 hours. Not black newspaper. There's no black show. This was not carried on a single black cable network. Not BET, not TV One, not Aspire, not Up, not any of them. This is the only place. And so this is why we have got to stop downplaying.
That's right.
Black-owned media to realize we do this every day.
Every day.
And so what you're talking about, what needs to be birthed, this has to be birthed. It's going to be birthed through black-owned media because you ain't going to get it anywhere else. Because you ain't going to get it on CNN or MSNBC or NBC, ABC, CBS.
Right.
Because there, even the black folk who got shows, they don't control their shows. Somebody else tells them what to talk about. And so I hope in this moment we realize, stop thinking white ice is colder.
Yes, sir.
Stop thinking that, oh man, well, they mentioned us on MSNBC. You got a mention there, but you can actually have a dialogue here. And so that's what is happening, I think, in supporting black-owned businesses, the Target Fast. Black people are now realizing we've been spending so much time trying to wear their stuff, impress them, satisfy them, that this moment is forcing black people to look inward and realize y'all people keep running around talking about Kendrick, what is they not like us or whatever the hell. Well, if we gonna keep saying that, we gonna say, do we like us?
No question.
No, when Dr. Carr said, when you said we've been in love with Americanism, and when you were talking earlier, I think when you were talking about how veterans voted against the right way, they voted for Trump. I think that what we've had to realize in this moment that I think will be powerful is that we fell in love with the idea of Americanism, but we have to realize that they didn't see us as Americans.
Never, right. Never
They didn't
will.
see us as
They never
Americans.
will.
And so here we are.
That's right.
As visitors or enemies of the state in a way, and we have to figure out what we do and who we have, and all we have is us.
Glenda Carr, Higher Heights. What are you hearing? Are you seeing a renewed fight, interest among the black women to run for office in the face of this fascism?
Absolutely. What we find is that black women are still engaged in this democracy, right, Roland? To understand how we got to a Kamala Harris 107-day historic run, we have to look at a 10-year acceleration of black women's political power and leadership. In 2014, we just had one black woman serving as a mayor of a major city. We now have 7. There was just 241 black women serving in state legislatures in 2014. We now have 283. There were only 18 black women serving in Congress. We now have 31, including 2 black women serving in the upper chamber. The first time we've ever had 2 black women serve in the U.S. Senate. So this has been a steady gain. There is still strides to go. Black women are still underrepresented in most of our American democracy, but there are black women who are plotting runs for local school board, the understanding that the importance of local governance more than ever, that there are Black women sitting in state legislatures or local business leaders or activists like a Judith Brown Diana. She's gonna kill me for saying this because she's not running for office. But that's the Kamala effect, right? The continuation of Shirley Chisholm's. There are Black women who were inspired. My goddaughter sat on the quad on Howard on election night and on the next day to hear Vice President Kamala Harris. And you could see in her eyes the spark of activism, the spark of her leadership, and that it'll be generations of Black women who are going to be inspired by this moment because they know that their families and their communities need their leadership now more than ever.
We're past 11 o'clock. Trump finally finished running his mouth. And so we've got, Elise Slotnick is speaking. Y'all don't even where we ain't carrying that. I ain't got no time. I ain't got no time to be hearing from her. So it's a lot more we're going to be covering here. So we're going to do this here. I'm going to ask Glenn another question. I'm going to bring in, so I'm going to swap out 4 folk with our panel on here. And so let me just do this real quick. I didn't figure out who it's for, but I'm going to do this real quick. I want to hear a final word on what you want folk to do from this point forward. We've had a great conversation on this night. What do you want them to do, Teresa? What do you want them to do?
Pray, lots of prayer, and also be safe. Get together as a community and support each other. I think that's the biggest thing. If you got to have people over at your house to commune, to pray together, I think that's so important right now. We need that mental and emotional support before we can take on the fight that's coming.
Jelena?
Someone said it earlier, but I want to underscore just speaking truth to power. As you know, I've been on here before, both as a government official and as a private citizen, speaking truth to power about our inequities within our halls of government, and as someone who actually used to work on the Hill too. Again, knock on your members of Congress's door, write them. It is powerful because I've had plenty of people for me when I was working in the administration. You know, can you tell Tony Blinken? I said no, I can't, because that's not how it works. But do you know who your member of Congress is, or better yet, do you know who your local electeds are? That's how you're empowered, and that's how you make a difference.
Noah.
I just want to say, you know, this is a very, I think about this moment when I think about Black history coming from a very, 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 very Black city, a very Black background. And for me, so much of this is like, duh. But then I have to put myself in other people's shoes. You know, when you think about kids who were born after the 80s and the 90s, and they were born in a post-integration world. They were born in all the post, and they were told, this is a new America, different America. You can do what you want, A, B, C, and D. And so for a lot of those folks who were still trapped in that Americanism that you two mentioned, I don't fault them, because this is the promise of the country that they said that they would deliver on, right? So where we are right now in this kind of revolutionary Renaissance moment, I'm here for it. I'm like, let's go. Right. But also it's because of where I come from. You know, like Blackness is just what it is in New Orleans, Louisiana. Like, I don't care what your zip code is or what your bank account says. That's just what it is. But I absolutely, you know, for younger folks out there that are confused about what's happening, they're like, I just want to go to brunch. Back to our brunch conversation. I want to go to brunch too. Don't nobody love brunch more than me. Nobody. You heard where I'm from, right? Okay. Listen, I'm just being honest.
I asked Roland where was the king cake.
Listen, it's Mardi Gras. It's Mardi Gras. It is.
Wait, I have.
Y'all didn't bring a damn thing.
Hold up. Let's be real clear.
That's the quote.
Let's be real clear. I didn't pay for the damn caterer.
That's the quote.
I didn't pay for the liquor. I paid for all.
That's why we didn't bring that.
Y'all didn't bring a damn thing.
You have all the things.
Y'all ain't bring a damn.
You have the things.
Y'all some fake ass New Orleans people.
distracted about bottom line. Listen.
What do you want people to do?
I didn't even get to finish
Build
my thought.
community.
Hell yeah, because you gave a thesis.
And that's why I'm here. Build community with your people.
Yes.
Whether it be over brunch or at a place where you ain't got no cake. Build community with your people. Cake.
Hey, first of all,
we have to be in love with them. The baby got to be in the cake.
Hey,
Get Mike
let
Johnson.
me be real
Up the
clear.
sides
Let me
going
real
on
clear.
the
Some
team.
goddamn red velvet cupcakes.
Okay.
Now, Mike want to call me out of that. All right, you said build community. Judith, go.
I mean, of course, I'm gonna say vote, right? I voted today. I live in Prince George's
Right.
County.
Oh, right.
We have a special election for, and that's a county exec position, but it's important because that's the person who's gonna protect me from the crap that's happening in Washington.
Absolutely. Glenda, what do you want folk to do? Great.
I didn't get to finish my thought.
I think Black women need to continue to vote, run, win, and lead. But I'm inspired by what I heard from you today, Roland. I got your text from 5 of my everyday Black women, someone from my church, someone from my sorority, someone from my girlfriend. So the power of our collective is unlimited. Like our power continues to be unlimited. And so it may be, as the vice president said on that November, 5th, where when it's the darkest, you can see our brightest lights. We are the brightest lights. And so the power of organizing with organizations like Higher Heights and Advancement Projects and many of the voices that you've had on all day, that's where you should sow your money and your time and your treasures. But organizing, everyday grandma organizing still works, y'all. And that's what we need to do.
Oh, it absolutely does. When, again, so people need to understand a window into this. When TV One canceled News One Now, I knew exactly what I was going to do. And the reason I launched it, even when they offered me a new 3-year contract, I told them no. Because I knew Tom Joyner was retiring in 2019. And when I studied the landscape, I said that losing the Tom Joyner morning show is going to have a negative impact on Black America, because, and it's no disrespect to all the other current syndicated radio shows, but if you combine all of those shows together, they literally do not do the kind of content that happened every day on Joyner. And I said then, we're going to have a problem heading into the 2020 election and then beyond. And so we saw all of this coming. Yeah, that's the president. That's the JD Vance motorcade. He going to the observatory. Yeah, his ass going. So I need people to understand that was the understanding, and I need people to pay attention. I need you to understand that we got some other folks who are coming up, but you've had LDF on, Lawyers for Civil Rights, Transforming Justice Coalition on, Advancement Project, Higher Heights. You had a multitude of groups who did not get called by any of the other networks. Come on. I need y'all to pay attention. I need y'all to pay attention.
Yes, sir.
Not only did they not get called tonight, they're not going to get called tomorrow or afterwards. The reason that is important is because y'all have seen tonight, y'all, we still got about 8 other people we're about to bring on. Y'all have seen more Black experts tonight than you're going to see on the 3 broadcasts and the 3 cable networks combined for the entire week, I dare say next 2 weeks. So this is why I need our people to understand that if 250,000 people could tune in tonight, you know what you've just proven? You can actually do it every night.
We don't do another million
You got to show them. See? I got to show every night. So again, I need people watching. I need you to understand what I'm saying. The moment you show the ability to mobilize and organize and prove the collective, now how do you replicate it day in and day out? So if you do $250,000, if I show y'all, if you do $250,000 every night, literally, that's more than watch Newsmax, more than watch OWN or HLN, more than watch a number of shows on CNN. That is literally our power. That's if we're willing to actually use it. So we're gonna do this here. Y'all don't go anywhere. It's a quick break. We got literally a quick break. We're gonna bring in our next group of panelists for a continued conversation. I have a number of millennial voices. I got something to talk to them about. They got stuff to say about. Yeah, we got stuff to talk about because I keep saying my pants. You did what?
Oh man.
We all know. So black. Anytime she sent her brother text her ass at brunch. Anyway, so we're gonna take a quick break. We're trying to get Congressman Al Green on the phone. We're gonna show you all the video when he interrupted Donald Trump's speech and they walked him out. He represented all of us. We're gonna show you some of the other stuff.
Didn't he bring impeachment? He also was the only one to yet again bring impeachment charges, right? Again. Wasn't he the one last time to do it?
Right.
Yeah.
But they still walked the brother out, but don't worry about it. we got his back. So we'll be right back on the Black Star Network. And again, if y'all watch and support the work that we do, join our Bring the Funk fan club. You can contribute via Cash App. Use the Stripe QR code right here on the screen. Go to blackstarnetwork.com if you're listening. See your checking money order, PO Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. PayPal, Art Martin Unfiltered. Venmo, RM Unfiltered, Zelle, Roland@RolandSMartin.com, Roland@RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Y'all remember, ain't nothing happening tonight free. Just so y'all know.
Because there was no king cake.
Just so y'all know. But don't worry about it because we're going to take Nola's credit card. She's going to be on some stuff. If her ass keep talking, I'll be right back.
Tonight with the people who are really running the country right now. Trump is often wrong and misleading about a lot of things, but especially about history. Donald Trump falling in line with President Elon Musk.
In the wake of the unsettling news that MSNBC has canceled Joy Ann Reid's primetime show, The Readout, Roland Martin and the Black Star Network would like to extend an invitation to all of the fans of Joy Ann Reid's MSNBC show to join us every night to watch Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming on the Black Star Network for news, discussion of the issues that matter to you, and the latest updates on the twice impeached, criminally convicted felon-in-chief Donald Trump and his unprecedented assault on democracy.
If y'all see the State of the Union,
Elon Musk takeover of the federal government. The Black Star Network stands
I ain't looking at it. I'm looking at him, Roland Martin. All right, everybody, I'm about to go. Until then, y'all be safe out there. The world's about to go nuts and crazy because of that fucking Trump. Excuse my language. All right, y'all be safe. Hit that subscribe, like, and comment. Hit that notification bell. So I'll let y'all know when I go live and let go of video. Until then, y'all be safe. See y'all later. Peace be still.
We are in the climate collapse. These extreme weather events are becoming more disastrous, and it